It's been a long time coming, but finally we have a proper big and sporty scooter on sale in India. Now the scooter I'm talking about is of course this one, the all new Aprilia SXR 160. It has got the typical Italian flair, it looks gobsmacking, it has got exciting performance and the ride and handling balance, well, it will always keep you ahead of the curve from regular commuters. Now, if you ask me, this is the best scooter that money can buy right now in the country.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt guys, but if you ask me, as exciting as the Aprilia is, it isn't the best scooter on the market today. I think this one is it. Well, the Aprilia Sure is sporty, it's big, it performs well, and it's amply spacious as well. But I'm sorry to say, that is not the way going forward. This one is. The Ather 450X, this one what we have here is the Series 1. It is electric, it packs a lot of tech, and I think this is the future.
Not denying that this is the future. I've ridden the original 450, but I think this future it's still evolving, whereas this internal combustion engines, well, they have evolved. They've been around for more than 100 years, so I think this is the tried and tested technology, and I'll stick with this.
So why don't we settle this argument once and for all and take this battle on the road?
So let's start with the aesthetics first. I think this is the battle that Aprilia really wins. Hands down, it's the better looking scooter. It has got that sharp RS660 like headlamps, LED headlamps. They look brilliant. And of course, this windscreen right here, it gives it a more big scooter feel. And then the overall shape, the way you sit on the scooter, it has that big scooter feel. The alloy wheels also look quite classy, and the overall design, especially even the tail lamps, they are a quality item. So overall this scooter, it looks like it has come from the house of Aprilia. It has the typical Italian flair, like I said, and in terms of design, I think this has a bigger scooter feel. It has more presence on the road. The Ather looks good, but I think it looks kind of mean, and it looks a little commonplace.
Well, I will give you that, Shivang, because that scooter surely looks quite interesting. It's a brilliant scooter to look at. It's very pleasing to the eyes, but that is only so far as you look at it from a distance. You come closer and you look at it a little more keenly, and you will notice that there are a lot of inconsistent quality plastics, panel gaps are inconsistent, and that really leaves you with a very bad taste at the end of it, especially when you're spending that sort of money. In comparison, the Ather looks, I mean, sure, it's a little smaller than that one, but in terms of quality, in terms of consistency, it is absolutely brilliant. I mean, you get these translucent panels on the side in the Series 1. It looks quite lean, it's sharp, and there are a lot of details that I really like the exposed frame right under the seat, the front LED headlamps, and the tail lamps as well. The LEDs, they look, even the ORVMs look quite nice actually. So in that sense, I mean, it's a battle quite close in my opinion.
Well, of course, but again, if you have to pick a winner, I think it's going to be the Aprilia. I agree, the quality is not that great, but Ather's quality is not the benchmark stuff either. It also has some inconsistencies in terms of panel gaps and all, but of course it's not as bad as it's on the Aprilia. Especially these are premium scooters, they come at a really high price tag. But overall, again, picking a winner, it is going to be the Aprilia.
Well, now that you mentioned the premium scooter, does your scooter have a touchscreen display?
Well, of course it doesn't have.
Does it have navigation?
Well, of course it doesn't have. Like I said, it is a more modern scooter, but it's still evolving. The touchscreen on this thing, fantastic, but it is buggy. At times it lags, and it has all the features. Yesterday we were trying to navigate. We were in a nice cafe. We wanted to navigate back to Ravi's home, but we couldn't get it connected. So those are some of the bugging features of that touchscreen. Of course it's good, but like I said in the beginning, this scooter, it's still in evolution phase. So even though you have all the features, they don't really work perfectly all the time.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. But well, if you were to move on, I would say in terms of ride quality, I think this is a much better scooter to ride on a day-to-day basis. Especially, we were riding all day yesterday through Bombay traffic and the horrible roads that we have in Bombay, right? But I felt that this one absorbed and cushioned the blows a lot more better than that one. That one is a little too stiff for my liking, especially when you're using these sort of scooters which are primarily used in urban environment.
Well, of course, that's right, but then this also handles beautifully. It feels like a motorcycle. The brakes are also quite good on that. The brakes on the Ather are also very good, but they are a little too sharp. Every time you grab the brake levers, well, it has a tendency to jam. It jams right there. So it is a little unnerving. So in that regard, of course, this has ABS. This has a more consistent feel. It feels like a typical properly built scooter. So this is where I think, of course, that has better ride quality and that has a slightly more comfortable seat. The seat is a little too stiff. It's very hard. So if you're riding short distances, you really feel that. On the Ather, it's slightly better. I think the seats are nice. They're quite cushy and comfortable. They're very soft. But if you spend probably an hour on the saddle, it does sink in, and then that's when your lower back starts to hurt. So I think this is a battle that probably, again, it's give and take, because whatever you choose, if you ride for short distances, the Ather is going to be more comfortable. But if your commutes are longer, well, this is what you will prefer, because this has a slightly stiffer suspension, harder seat, so it doesn't tire you out. Of course, you feel a little uncomfortable, but in terms of back pain and all, I think it's the Ather that loses out. Now, speaking of long time on the saddle, well, that's not going to be a problem with the Ather, because you only get a charge of 85 kilometers. And of course, if your commute is that much, if you can manage that in a day, that's great. But this, you can ride it all day without any problem. Even if you are low on fuel, you can just go to a nearest petrol station, fuel it up and get going again. With the Ather, Ravi, would you like to tell our audience the kind of troubles we faced yesterday while trying to fully charge this thing?
Well, to start with, Shivank, let me give you a little bit of a statistic. An average scooter user doesn't ride more than 30 to 35 kilometers in a day. So the 85 kilometer charge that you're talking about doesn't quite hold too much of importance, especially when you know that you can charge the scooter probably once in 2 or 3 days and you'll be absolutely fine. Well, yes, we did have some charging issues yesterday. The Ather guys told us that we can plug it to a 5 ampere as well as a 15 ampere slot. It shouldn't be a problem, but we were facing a lot of inconsistency in charge times. While it claims to be a 5-hour, 45-minute charge time, it wasn't quite fully charged in that particular time. It kept fluctuating back and forth, and we are not quite sure what the reason for that was.
I agree to Ravi, it is a great scooter, but the thing is that 85 kilometers of range, well, that is only in eco mode, and eco mode, well, it's quite slow. The top speed is nearly 50 to 55 kilometers per hour. The acceleration is good till 20 or 30 kilometers per hour, but then it kind of flattens, and you are the slowest moving thing on the road. So I think when you switch to other modes, there are 4 more modes, I guess, including the warp mode, which is all performance. But then if you use that, you are going to eat up all that battery, and that does cause some range anxiety. What do you think?
Well, I've been riding this for the entire day yesterday, and I agree with you. Well, as far as the eco mode is concerned, we used it on the Western Express Highway, and getting onto flyovers and uphill climbs using when you're in the eco mode is quite a bit of a problem, because even when you're completely gassed in, it just refuses to go above 40-45 kmph, and that sometimes causes an issue, especially when the rest of the traffic is moving a little faster. But I think from what I've experienced yesterday, I've been riding it in different conditions with different modes. Overall, I think what I've got is a range of about 65 to 70 kilometers in a single full charge, and that I think is quite respectable.
Well, that's right, but when it comes to performance, I think the Aprilia is a clear winner again, because this scooter is really fast. It's a 160cc scooter. It's quite light, and it feels very light on its feet. Now the Ather, of course, has got that warp mode, and it is quite quick in that mode. It does, as per Ather, it does 0 to 40 kilometers per hour in just 3.3 seconds. and we tested it and it came quite close to that, because as per our tests it did 0 to 40 in 3.5 seconds, whereas this one it took more than 4 seconds. But after that the performance kind of tapers off, because 0 to 60 this was nearly a second slower than this one. And now another problem with that scooter is that the speedometer, well, it has big error, because we were riding both the scooters parallel to each other, and while the Aprilia was showing a readout of close to 82 or 83 kilometers per hour, that was showing 87 or 88 while it was behind. So there is a huge I think speedo error on that scooter, and you feel you're going quick, but that's not the case.
Well, sure, that one takes it in terms of performance, especially when you're considering a 0 to 60 speed. But I think even in terms of an ICE scooter, that isn't the most refined one that you can probably get your hands on. I mean, you get a lot of other scooters. The TVS N-Torque is a lot more smoother. The Suzuki scooters, the Bergman is a lot more smoother. Sure, this is more powerful, but you get more refined scooters in the market today. And in that sense, I think the Aprilia has always been lacking, whether you consider the SR 160 or even the new SXR 160. In terms of refinement of this electric motor, I think it is absolutely smooth. The way the power kicks in, it's very linear, it kicks in very nicely, and there is no jerk, or there is no, even when you roll off the throttle, you don't quite get a jerk, which is something we've experienced in a lot of other electric scooters, and that is not something you would experience in this. Another big ace up the Ather sleeve is, I think, its handling. It is a smaller scooter, and I think it's a lot more nimbler, which means you can easily find your way in and out of traffic, especially in a city like Bombay, which is extremely busy. Sure, the Aprilia, because of its stiff suspension, handles absolutely brilliantly as well for what it is, but I think you will be able to have much more fun on that when you're out in the open roads, you're out in the hills, and you're going through some nice and flowing winding sections. But that isn't quite as much fun in the city. It's big, it's ungainly in that sense, and I think a smaller scooter in the city, it feels a lot more nimbler. I think the Ather is definitely much more easier to live with than the Aprilia in that sense. And the biggest talking point for the Ather has to be the running cost. Ather claims that it consumes only 3 units of power to go from 0 to 100% of charge, which should roughly cost you about 20 to 25 rupees if I'm not mistaken, and that is a big win for the Ather.
Well, of course he's right about the running cost, but then this is a more expensive scooter. It costs 1.69 lakh on road in Mumbai, whereas this, the Aprilia, is priced at just 1.52 lakh. It has more performance, it's a bigger scooter. So what's your reason for that? Why would you pick that?
Well, it's just a differential of 17,000, and that 17,000 can be easily covered. That scooter does about 33 kilometers to a liter, and frankly fuel in Mumbai is very expensive. As on date, it is borderline 96 bucks a liter, which makes it very expensive. And given the running cost of this, you would essentially cover the 17,000 differential in roughly a year, and from then on it's all savings for you.
Well, that's right, actually that's a good point. So now shall we just conclude, which one should you buy? Well, personally I think I'll still stick with the Aprilia, because this is the technology that has evolved and it is a better scooter. It's a fuss-free scooter. Wherever you want to go, you don't have to think about it twice. You just take the keys, you just hop onto the scooter and you just ride into the distance. Whereas on the Ather, well, you have to be very careful. There are Ather grids or charging points in a city like Bombay, or if you're in Bangalore, there are over I think 36 or 50 Ather grids, so that's not a problem. But again, it is going to take some time to charge that up, so it's not going to be very convenient, and you have to plan your trips accordingly. Whereas on this, you don't have to care about anything. But at the end of the day, well, personally I think the Ather is a very good attempt, and it is actually the future. But the problem with that scooter, it's not a finished product in that sense, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of it can't compete with a regular scooter if you have to run it daily, or if you have to go anywhere. You can't, you have to really plan your commutes with this scooter. If you have to go on an impromptu trip somewhere, you can't do that. You have to look for grids around there, you have to look for charging stations around there, and only then you can do that. Whereas on a petrol scooter, you don't have to do that. So it all boils down to this: if you want a trouble-free scooter, well, you are better off with the Aprilia or any other ICE scooter. But if you want to embrace the future, if you want to be one of those early adopters of the EV technology, I think the Ather is a very good option. Of course, for the infra to come in, it will probably take 2 to 3 years more. Of course, the demand for this scooter across the country is very high, but Ather has been churning out these scooters at a relatively slower pace. So there is a longer delivery period. But now Ather has a new plant, and the production has gone up from just 950 units to 9,200 units. So that is a big jump. They have become a proper auto company now. So in the years to come, you are going to see more of these scooters on the road. And the more people ride it, I think the more people will like it, and that's how the technology will evolve. But as of today, I think the Aprilia makes more sense.
Let us know what you think of both these scooters, the Aprilia SXR 160 as well as the Ather 450X. If you have any questions about either of these scooters, leave them in the comment section below and we'll be happy to answer them. Until next time, bye-bye.